part of this whole thing. I mean, I know you guys are like trying to reach just more women in the scene, whether it's on bikes or like, you know, doing other, you know, outdoors things or racing or not racing. And that's kind of is honestly the constant struggle for me. If I look at my Instagram demographics, it's 80% men and 20% women, which is, you know, never encouraging. But it's kind of, it's the same across, you know, all my friends in the sport, you know, who look at their own, you know, information there. It's like 80% men, 20% women, and, you know, very similar ratios in, you know, just like race signups as well. And I guess, you know, the constant struggle for me is just, you know, reaching the women who are out there. And I know that's a large part of the reason, like, you know, you guys have this podcast and you guys are like, you know, taking these initiatives. And yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I feel like I'm, you know, already at this point in my career in which I'm just like racking my brain for like ways to like get them. Cause like, I know they're out there. And I don't know, I guess I just want to, you know, throw it out there that like, I am a resource and I love to be that resource. And there's nothing I enjoy more than like a woman showing up in my DMs and being like, answer this question for me, or like, how do I get started, or like, what do I eat on this ride, or how do I train for this race, or like, what's your favorite, you know, way to do this, or like piece of equipment. It's just like, I love that. And I will talk to somebody for hours and I will type you like 10 paragraphs. And it's just like, I'm so there, but it's like that opportunity comes up for me, like maybe like 3 times a year or something, where like, you know, a woman will like actually show up there. And mostly it's just like those stupid like reactions from like largely men. And I'm like, how do I change this? This is not what I wanted. But yeah, I guess, you know, I am hoping to, you know, do more on my part to like actually, you know, attract women to the sport. But as far as things are right now, I just want to let it be known that like I am here, and I want to help you.
Maybe that's our Girls Gonna Travel challenge this week is let's get Amity's followers to 30% female.
Amity, I mean,
Christy, it's just like, yeah. So
you can already see my wheels turning, couldn't you, Christy? I'm like, I text Christy like 4 ideas a day. Hey, we should do this. We should do this. We should.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, you know, I finally have time to, you know, think about all these things, because this is typically the time of the year where it's like, I am very much focused on myself instead, and my fitness and where I'm going and what races I'm doing and like who I have to beat. But now I'm kind of at home like, well, what else can I do? So yeah, whatever people want, I'm here for. If you are a woman and you're listening to this and you have gravel questions, please DM me.
Or if you want a bread recipe, apparently.
Honestly, yes. I probably give out like equal parts bread advice and training advice. Not an expert in either, but I will try to help you.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much for bringing that up and for putting that out there. I really love that. And yes, our goal is to really create a community of women that are chasing their adventures, whether they're something epic, like going on that 350-mile ride, or just, you know, getting out of their comfort zone and doing their first ride. And so I think the more women realize we actually are a community and we want to help each other out, the stronger that we'll all be. So
yeah.
Yep.
The one thing I do see kind of, you know, encouraging in a sense from the industry is that I do see a little bit more concerted effort going towards just visibility, which I know would have helped me like years ago getting into it, just being like, oh, women do this? Like, that's cool. Because at least in running, like running's a lot more kind of egalitarian in terms of like, you know, who does it and who races and who, you know, participates in these kind of events. And I never questioned that. I was never like, oh, is there a space for me here? But definitely, you know, getting started in bikes, it was like all I heard was like, oh, like professional women cyclists don't make money, or like professional women cyclists, you know, that's just not a thing. There's not a women's Tour de France. There's not this, you know, and it was always just this like super negative, like, there's no space for you here. Like, good luck. You can do it, but like, good luck. And I think I think it's the media's responsibility, but it's also ours in a small sense of just like getting our names out there, getting our faces out there, kind of putting a foot down and being like, we exist. Talk about us, because I think that's ultimately what creates that next generation.
Yeah, so true. I wonder if you had that conversation with your mom about what her experience was when she started running, what she would say. Because running came a long way because brands started highlighting women and
yeah, no, and I do know that when she got started, it was kind of like a very odd thing for a woman to be doing. And she didn't actually start running until I think she was like 28 or 29. And she said that was because like she didn't have PE in school. She had homemaking. And she always had like giant calves her whole life, but nobody ever said, well, like maybe you should try, distance sports, or maybe you should go for a run. It was always like, no, women don't run. So I do think she went through or saw a very similar shift, kind of in her field as it happened. But yeah, it's fascinating.
We could seriously do a whole other podcast on just this topic.
I know.
Yeah, so maybe we could have you back.
I'm here. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, you're not
this
doing
could
anything.
Be like a fun. Okay, so here's an idea, Christy. We could do like try to get several former Dirty Kansas female winners, and have like a roundtable on where they see women in sport and how to grow it. That would be a fun.
It's interesting when Amity brought that up, because one of the things that is in a little platform document that I started was really to encourage our women winners how you use Dirty Kansas to grow your own career. Because I was seeing that the men were doing it, but not necessarily the women. And I was like, they have the same platform. They just have to capitalize on it. And we've been fortunate enough that really, we've had enough female winners that have done that it hasn't really been needed. So, it's encouraging from my perspective to see someone like Amity is a perfect example that can use the win there to raise the platform, not only for herself, but it raises the platform for all of us. And that's important. It's important. It's actually a responsibility. That's the way I look at it, is like, if you win Dirty Kansas as a female, you sort of have a responsibility to take the rest of us with you at that point. Raise that boat a little bit.
No, that's it. Yeah.
The next person. So
I do. Yeah. I almost entirely agree with you. The one thing I would like to kind of go back on there is that, like, I don't think we have the same platform. I don't think the men's and women's winners are presented with the equal opportunity in any sense. I had to push like crazy. I did a lot on my own. Like, I got, initially you get hit up by like a lot of media outlets, and that, is all really, really promising and really encouraging. But the momentum itself, I feel like, I've had to carry a large part of that on my own. Yep. And that's kind of, while I'm witnessing all these opportunities just kind of, fall into the hands of the men's winners, unfortunately. And like, you're constantly questioning it. It's like, a few months ago, like Velo News comes out with an edition, and on the front is like Colin Strickland, and it's like gravel hero. And it's like, I just don't, like, that's not available to me. I can lobby Velo News. I can be like, can you please put me on the cover? I can be like, interview me now. But it's like, that doesn't fall into my lap in the same way. Right. And that's not to say that he isn't putting in a ton of work. Anybody who knows Colin knows he never stops working, or like, any of similar men. But it's like, it's not the same platform. And I do think I have had to be, a lot more aggressive in kind of, just making sure all that, it's we're
constantly pushing that. It has to be, it's one of the reasons that I think these initiatives don't go away soon, because we've talked about, I've talked with Celine Yeager, and I've talked with other women about how long do we have to keep doing these women's initiatives. And I'm like, I think it's going to be for a really long time, because we have to work 10 times harder to get the same access. And people just don't think about it all the way through. And you see it, I see it every day. I feel I get tired of fighting.
Even after Kansas, it was like, not to, trash Velo News too much here, but it was like immediately after they put out an article, and it was about the men's race. And then like 2 days later, there was kind of like this addendum about like and then like a few days later, there was like this like 4-page article about how the men's race played out. And then literally like weeks after that, they contacted me and they're like, well, this article about Colin did so well and received so much attention that we're thinking maybe we should do the same thing for the women. And I was like, oh, maybe. I don't know. Whereas like, other publications are totally, just hyper aware of that. I'm hyper aware of like giving equal space, or like even some others, like I think it's like CX magazine, which is like not even a gravel magazine, supposedly. It's about cyclocross. But like even just like the tiniest things, as to like in an article about Kansas, like they'll have the first sentence be like, oh, the Dirty Kansas, 200 happened. Amity Rockwell won the women's race and Colin Strickland won the men's race. Even just like putting my name first. It's just like, thank you. It's like amazing. It's almost like, I felt like those were two like equally important statements. And it's just all those little things. And it's just, being aware of it as a publication, as a writer, as a journalist, as anybody who's kind of involved in the whole like, storytelling side of the sport, is just like, don't talk about the whole men's race first and then be like, oh, by the way, Amity won the women's race, because that was like the main thing I fought. And that's, the main, hurdle I have when I'm like approaching people, and it's like, hey, like, I can't send you this article about this race because I'm an afterthought in it. So yeah. But I do, like, for everything that's done poorly, I see equal pushback. For every like, publication that like missteps once, like I see people, all over their social media. I see people in the comments section being like, what happened in the women's race? Like when Mid-South did such like an intensive job of documenting like the front of the race this year, and then kind of like forgot to mention any women for a while, like their social media was just like overwhelmed with people being like, what about women? And it was like, I just like, that's encouraging. And that's, what makes it so easy to kind of like keep being super aggressive and keep being pushy, is because it's like, there is, this like grassroots, like, support there when we look for it. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's so important, not just for women that are competitive. I mean, it comes down to your salary, but it also, I think I talk to a lot of women that don't ever sign up for events because they just kind of think they're not for them. And I think if you just see like women out there doing it and talking about their experience, it changes, things.
Yeah.
So I think it's,
and that is, I think that does bring up kind of an important point for me too, is that I think, as gravel gets bigger and as gravel gets more and more serious, like I do think event promoters really need to like come back and focus on the like experiential aspect of it, because like that's what, got me to sign up for my first Grasshopper, was people being like, this is kind of a race, but this is also totally not a race if you don't want it to be a race. And that's what made me be like, well, sure, then I'm in. Like, I didn't want to race my bike. I wanted to ride my bike with a lot of like-minded people and experience a new place and like, make some friends and like meet other people who like doing the same shit that I like doing. And it was like, that's what got me there. And I think as these kind of become like the events that everybody's talking about, the events that, arguably like, make people like me like known, I think like we really, really need to think about how to preserve that initial, like, this is ultimately just a bike ride kind of appeal. Or, as these, events catapult themselves into, big deals, I think maybe we need some events that are literally just bike rides, to like bring everybody together, to like encourage people to ride with new people, and see new places. Because that's what drew me to it. And that's honestly like what still gets me excited about races that like I feel like I have no chance of winning. So
yeah, I think once you do your first one, you're like, oh, there's just so many people that are here for fun. It's not about winning. Then you're like,
no, the actual experience is totally true to that. It's just a matter of like, how do we show this to people who aren't here yet? Because it's so cool. It's so cool. The first year I did Kansas, it was dramatically different from the second year, in that I was like way out there in the middle of it with like, no idea what was happening in the front, but I met a lot of people and I had a really wonderful time. and ultimately like finished being so excited to come back the next year. And that was not, you know, with the mindset of like, I'm gonna come back and win next year. It was like, I just want to do this again. That was a great time. So
Awesome.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for bringing all this up. We could literally probably keep talking about this for another 45 minutes, but I like this idea of this roundtable thing. We'll make this happen.
yeah.
So we really appreciate your time today, and we want everybody to go follow you on Instagram. It will be linked in the show notes, and send you messages.
I swear this is out of benevolence and not out of wanting to hit like 13,000 followers. But.
Oh, of course.
Well, I want to see get more women followers. That's amazing that it's only 20%. So we got to work on that.
Every single personality I know in the sport, it's 80-20.
Yeah, we have a big following of men with Girls Gone Gravel, which surprised me when I pulled the stats. So,
which is great. Like, I love when men, you know what's going on in the women's competitive side of things, or like know the names of female racers. I'm like, that's awesome. But yeah, if we could just kind of generate a similar level of excitement among women, that would make me feel like I had been, marginally successful in all this. So
yeah, well, that is an awesome goal, and we will help you do it. So thank you again for your time. I don't know what's going on over there with Christy. I think she's trying to crawl out the van window.
We better stop recording, Catherine. This could go south.
I know. All right. Thanks again, all.
Thanks, Amity.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I miss you dearly, Gravel family, but hopefully we all get reunited soon.